Hi, welcome to Dolly Do-Overs. My name is Renee Galvin, and today we are going to be working with the Riptide. She's one of my favorites to customize because of her hair is so awesome. I use it for mains a lot. We're going to start with acrylic white paint. Make sure it's acrylic. And you can see here I've already given her 2 coats. It will actually take 3 coats to get her fully covered. We're going to follow her hairline, and then we're going to come straight down in front of her ears and around the head. Now once these 3 coats are fully on her, we will then start on her head, her hair, or her mane in this case. We're going to use black acrylic for the mane. We're going to go all along her hairline, and since her hair has so many little creases and marks in it, we're going to go ahead and do this tap and pull method, where you kind of tap the paint in and then you just pull it around to where it needs to go. Usually you can get this all covered with 1 round of paint, but sometimes I go over with 2 just to make sure I have all the little spaces and divots in her hair. After we get this totally finished, then we're going to work on her stripes. Now if you have wet paint, the paint goes on a lot easier and you can work with it very fluidly. Alright, once that is finished, we will work on her eyes. I use 3 different colors now with the technique that I do with the eyes. I'm using a medium color, a dark color, and a light color. I use really tiny brushes. I start with my medium color and I go all over the eyes. Then I take a darker color and I go into the creases and along the bottom line of the eye. Then I take my lighter color and I kind of just dot it in and kind of do that same tap and pull method. I dot it in and I kind of wait for it to dry just a little bit and smear it. Then I go back in with the dark and re-put that in and give it some more depth. And touch up where it needs a little bit of sparkle. Once her eyes are totally finished, then I realize I forgot to do her ears beforehand. Every zebra needs ears, right? So I take my sugar, which is a moldable glue. You've seen me use it multiple times. And I sculpt some ears for her. I start with just a round cylinder shape, and then I use the base of my silicone, it's just a clay tool, and use the back of it and create the ear shape. I pinch the end to give it a little point, and then I put it onto the ear, or onto the head, I'm sorry. Do the same thing for this one. And then once the paint has dried on the base, we'll go ahead and put on the hooves. Now with this, I just roll it into a ball and I push it onto the hands and making sure it's the right shape. And then I flatten up the bottom part of where your hand where her hand ends. I do that for both sides. And then I do the same thing for her feet. Now her feet, I do use shoes. Oh, and before I do that though, I take my stylish at the end of it and give it a little crease down the middle so it looks more like a hoof. I do that on both sides. And then I work on the shoes. I start with the base of the shoe and then I make a hoof on top of that. With these, I just use my X-Acto knife and make a little line in it. And then what I do is I scrape the inside of it and kind of slim it down so that when the feet and the legs are next to each other, that they don't rub against one another. Once that's finished, I am going to make her bow, which I just roll into like a cylinder and flatten up the ends, and I put it on her head. Now, what I do from here is I kind of just sculpt it out. I start cutting out pieces that I don't want anymore. So I cut out little triangles and make it a bow shape. It's a lot easier than trying to mold it and then put it on your doll. Once that's finished, I take my silicone tool and I just do a little impression in it. And then I take a little ball and you can see that I'm making the little wrinkles in her ribbon. Once that is drying, I go ahead with purple paint and I put this all over Cherry's skirt. And this is going to take about 3 coats because this one's a hard one to cover since it has the black on it. Go all over and underneath. And then I take a darker color, that same darker purple that we were using, and I go into the deep creases of the skirt, and it just gives it a little bit of depth. This isn't something that you have to do, it's just something that I like to do. I think it makes it look more 3D. And then once that's drying, I'm going to cover the shirt, and I'm going to just do it in a light pink, and this will also take about 3 coats. Now, once we have the dark and medium pink purple drying and all dry, then I go back with a lighter purple and I'm just creating a highlight on the outside flat, like outside edges. This is also not mandatory, but just something I like to do to make it a little bit more depth. Now, once your sugar has dried 24 hours, you do have to wipe it down to get the residue off, and you'll see that in a minute where I didn't do that on the shoes, and you can see it repelling the paint. And if that happens, you just wipe it down with a paper towel at that point and then start again. So it's not the end of the world if you forget or from this spot, but it just does create more work for you. Now, after this, I totally thought my phone was recording and it was actually on picture mode. So when I finished her up and got her dressed, all of that stuff is just a picture. So you will not see that, and I super apologize for that. But it's all basic stuff that I've done in previous videos. You can see how she turned out. And you will see that right now. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe.